everywhere.
Join today at allsoulschurch.org.
Just a little slower. My drops. You can give me more even. That bass. It's And I'd like to, as long as you can keep me in the pocket. That E flat's gonna stay there. I'm gonna cast my spell on
That's all you get.
Bring it up to the closer to the mic. Can you bring up that cajon mic?
Yeah,
Yes.
Don't bring it up.
That's Matt Edwards, everybody. You can't see him, but there he. Thank you. I lost the beat. Sorry. Hear no evil. See no evil. Speak no evil. Oh, babe. Souls Jazz Club. It's 11:34.
Wow, when the service starts out like that, you know we're going places today. When it feels like we're in an Isaac Hayes concert or something like that. You know we're off and running. This feels good. Welcome to all of you, especially those who are here for the first time. Any guests who are with us, lovely to see some young people with us. We're going to have a story for you all in just a moment. And if you're here for the first time, this is our point service. It's our Humanist hour every Sunday at 11:30 in here in our fellowship hall. And it's just great to welcome people who come from all different perspectives, different religious beliefs, spiritualities, agnosticism, atheism, humanism, all of it. We're welcome everybody. Wherever you are on your journey, you are welcome here. If you're watching online, we hope that you'll share this on Facebook and other places so that we can share the good message of this place of All Souls with others. If you would do me a favor and help me read the covenant. It's a promise we make to one another in this community. It's what binds us together. Since we don't have a creed or a common belief like most religious groups that have a belief that they all ascribe to, we don't have that because there's many beliefs and many believers in this and non-believers in this community. We gather together by this promise of how we will be in community with each other. Join me. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. Welcome to All Souls, where we love beyond belief. This morning, our chalice will be lit, but the words will be read by two of our members who live on a farm, Richard Bunn and Kelly Jennings. So they'll be on the screen because we wanted them to bring their animals into the chalice lighting this morning.
Here she comes.
Sit down. We light this chalice, spark of the original fire of creation, to remind us that we all on this planet, the furred, the feathered, the finned, and the scaled, along with us, we are all made of the same star stuff and all share a common destiny. We are inextricably intertwined, interconnected, and interdependent, and it is good.
During the first service, we did a traditional blessing of the animals. You know, where we didn't bring them into the sanctuary this morning. We had people send in photographs. Maybe you sent in a photograph. I know you did, Jeff, because I saw it in the first service. So, during this next song, I want you to see all the beautiful pets and animals. I like to say, they bless us every day of our lives or their lives. And so on in the Catholic Church, it's the feast of St. Francis of Assisi, one of the most beloved of the Catholic saints. And so in his honor, we bring the animals forth. And even though we're not laying our hands on them to bless them, I think just our seeing them and our smiles will be how we celebrate them this morning.
story is a traditional indigenous American tale retold by Margaret Silf, and it is called The Ferocious Dog. But this dog doesn't start out as ferocious. It starts out like this. There was once a perfectly normal little dog, neither fierce nor timid. And one day, this dog wandered off to a nearby fairground and found himself inside the Hall of Mirrors. Have you ever been inside one of those Hall of Mirrors? The fun house where it's mirrors upon mirrors and all you can see is reflections and there's no way out. The little dog took one look around and saw hundreds of dogs staring back at him. Terrified at being so surrounded, he began to bark and bare his teeth. And to his horror, every one of the hundreds of other dogs did the same. And suddenly, the ordinary little dog was in the midst of a hostile army of strange and fearsome dogs. His barking grew even more frantic and his growl more vicious, and he tried to bite the other dogs, but as soon as he got too near them, they growled and tried to bite him back. This might have gone on all night, but the little dog's owner came looking for him, and as soon as the little dog caught sight of his owner and heard his familiar call, he began to wag his tail and jump up and down for joy. And yes, all the other little dogs did the same. And the little dog went home thinking that perhaps the big wide world might not be as terrifying as he first thought, now that he had a friend with him. Now, children, not the adults, did the little dog even recognize himself when he was so scared and angry? No, he didn't. What did he try to do when he saw all those other dogs? He tried to bite them. He tried to scare them away. Did you know that it's actually important that we make friends with our anger? That we get to know it and how to deal with it? Because it's part of us. It's a powerful and useful part of us if we understand it and make room for it, if we can control it and not do mean and evil things with it. So come with me, and we will get to know our anger, and we might even try to put a funny hat on it.
We are going to have the animals at the end of the service. I need to stop throwing these things at the tech team in the middle of a service. Okay, we'll do that at the end, so you'll get to see those beautiful animals. But I want to offer a reading and then some transitions in the life of our community. But the reading is from Gregory Maguire, who writes, people who claim that they're evil are usually no worse than the rest of us. It's people who claim that they're good or are way better than the rest of us that you have to be wary of. All right? Well, I got an amen out of the Humanist service. That must be a good reading. So before we go into a moment of silence, I just want to lift up all the people in Florida who are dealing. I think there were 58 or 6 deaths that they've already found, and of course we know it devastates the animals and the environment and so many people's lives. So we send our love from this place, all the positive energy that we can to them. We're going to actually take a collection for hurricane relief next Sunday. And I hope you'll join us in doing that. Also, we're thinking about all the people who are back, helping them and doing what they can to try to make life better there and everywhere else. So let's take them and anyone else who's on your heart into the silence this morning, and let us remember that as we lift up a new theme this month of good and evil, let us humble ourselves in thinking about where we fit in that circle of good and bad.
Rick and I were talking just a little while ago, a couple of days ago, about how many songs are about evil or the devil or being bewitched.
Right.
Bothered and bewildered.
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
In fact, some of you may know that we use a songbook or a hymn book in the sanctuary, and I believe it's the very first
It is.
hymn there. Yeah.
In our own Unitarian Universalist hymn book, hymn number 1 addresses evil. It says, "May nothing evil cross this door, and may ill fortune never pry about these windows."
Yeah, so the first statement out of the docs is
Indeed.
no evil around here. The second, then we noticed, Rick, there were some songs written in the 1940s. Some of you may recognize a couple of these songs about being bewitched
And the devil.
and the devil.
They wanted to. Exactly. That's a good impression there. Like one of them goes, "I look at you and suddenly something in your eyes I see soon begins bewitching me. It's that old devil moon that you stole from the skies. It's that old devil moon in your eyes."
Anybody ever heard that song before? Yeah.
Okay. And there's another very famous one, Richard Rogers, who wrote with Hammerstein, but Lorenz Hart and Rogers wrote this. "I'm wild again, beguiled again, a simpering, whimpering child again, bewitched, bothered, and bewildered."
They know these things.
right, yes.
They know these
The
things.
bewitching hour, yes.
And then in the 19, I think it was late 60s,
67, I think.
a guy named Willie Bobo recorded a song, and then years later, Santana came out with the same song and made a pretty big hit off of it. Let's see if you recognize this.
You've got to change your evil ways, baby, before I stop loving you.
I see
You've
some
got
lips
to
going.
change, baby. Every word that I say is true. You got me running and peeping and all over town. You got me peeping and running and doing you down. This can't go on. Lord knows it can't go on. You've got to change your evil ways.
Yeah.
All right.
Dale.
All right.
And then I don't know if anybody remembers. I think it was the 1970s or 80s. There was a wonderful man. His name was Flip Wilson. Anybody remember Flip?
Oh, yeah.
And he had this famous saying, and that was, "The devil
made me do it."
made me do it." Right?
Right.
And then the Rolling Stones.
Stones.
Yeah, they came out with something.
Sympathy for the devil.
Have a little sympathy.
A little sympathy for the devil.
I see some people nodding their heads right now because they know that song. Yeah, they know the song we're gonna sing. piano. Here we go. Please allow me to introduce myself. I'm a man of wealth and taste. Been around for long, long years. Stole millions of man's soul and faith. I was around when Jesus Christ had his moment of doubt and pain. Made sure the Pilate washed his hands, sealed his fate. Who knows this next part? Pleased to meet you. Hope you guess my name. But what's puzzling you is the nature of my game. Anybody ever heard this song before? Come on. You gotta do this part. Come on. Woo, woo. There you go.
All right.
They're awesome, man.
Okay,
Tell you what,
you're the choir.
you are the choir. Now there was a song that came out just last year.
Yes,
That
right.
we just learned about it. Actually,
Absolutely, just
from this
found out
project
about it.
called The Villainess. Oh my. The Villainess, ESS, and the story is the villain is setting this guy up and telling you, listen, it's not going to be what you think it is, and so she does like this. In fact, can you just say this with us?
Yes.
Sometimes
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 good
good
people
people
do bad things.
do bad things.
Here we go. I'm gonna line it up, then I'll burn it down. I'm gonna make you feel like you're invincible when no one's around. I'm gonna build you up, then I'll strike you down. 'Cause you're about to know it's nothing personal. Sometimes good people do bad things. That's pretty good, isn't it?
sometimes
I'm gonna line it up, then I'll burn it down. I'm gonna make you feel like you're invincible when no one's around. I'm gonna build you up, then I'll strike you down. It's nothing personal. Sometimes good people do bad things. Can you say that with us? Sometimes good people do bad things. That's great. One more time. Sometimes good people do bad things.
All right.
There you
Let's
go.
hear it for these guys. Fun. That is fun. Y'all make being bad and evil sound like you're having a good time. I don't know. Maybe our parents were right that rock and roll, is the devil's music. Maybe it kind of makes you tap your feet and want to go out and do something bad. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. So my message today is only for those who are at times hostile, manipulative, and narcissistic. Now, if you're not one of us, that's okay. I still think you'll get something out of the message today. In part because who among us is not at some times hostile, manipulative, and narcissistic? Now, don't we all have a little dictator inside us? A tiny, dyspeptic, self-important Vladimir Putin, or Slobodan Milosevic, or Idi Amin? Just a wee little autocrat lurking inside us, wanting to control others and have it our way? Or is it really just me? In which case, I want to apologize to anyone who thought they were coming to All Saints Church this morning. I think that's somewhere down Peoria. Unfortunately, here, we're just All Souls. I'm not a saint. If you're a saint, then you've come to the wrong church, because I am not good enough to be the head of All Saints. there's no way that's going to happen. My topic today is why good people do bad things. Because we're launching a new theme in the month of October of good and evil. And I realized that I could stand up here and I could talk about all the evil things we don't do. All the heinous crimes and wanton violence of actual dictators and serial killers and hitmen and sociopaths. Then we could all go home happily pointing our fingers at all those truly bad people out there who are not us. Instead of that, though, today, can we here, just amongst ourselves, admit that it's not just other people who have hidden agendas and deeply held judgments and jealousies and prejudices and envies, addictions, and who rationalize their behavior, and who, by doing so, add to the division and the struggles and the brokenness of our world. Again, for those of you for whom this doesn't apply, I apologize in advance. Carl Jung said, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." If we are going to be a source of love and light and unity in this world, the first step is recognizing where we are divided within ourselves. It's not that some of us are good and some of us are bad. We all have the capacity for doing great good as well as great harm. The old Cherokee story comes to mind, where a grandfather tells his grandson that there are two wolves in a battle within each of us. One wolf is good, the other wolf is bad, and the grandson asks, "Well, which one wins?" And his grandfather says, "The one you feed." Now, good people do bad things because there are no purely good people. Even when we think that we're doing something good, we sometimes find out later that we did harm. I can remember one time when I was speaking at a gun control forum years ago. It was after a mass shooting in a school, and I was full throttle on my self-righteous indignation about the need for better gun safety laws as well as the need for better enforcement of such laws. I went on with great passion and certitude about my position, and particularly about the need to keep guns out of the hands of those with mental illness. Now, what I failed to realize, and only discovered later, was that there were some folks in the audience who had been touched by mental illness, and they were deeply offended by what I had said and how I had framed the issue around mental illness, and how they felt it would further marginalize them within society that already marginalized them. So in my righteousness, I had obscured their humanity. I did not see how my words and opinions would further their oppression. So what the grandfather doesn't tell his grandson in this Cherokee story is that we can't always tell which one of the wolves we're feeding. Sometimes when we think we're feeding the good wolf, we're really feeding the bad wolf dressed up in the good wolf's clothing. Christian missionaries have traumatized generations of indigenous children, not because they're particularly sadistic people, but because they thought they were doing what God wanted them to do. They believed that they were bringing the light of God to the heathens, saving them from eternal damnation. More harm has been done by people who think they're doing good than will ever be done by people who are intentionally trying to do harm. The bloody and barbaric crusades were launched by Christians to spread the truth and love of God. The Ku Klux Klan was America's largest Christian terrorist organization. They didn't see themselves as terrorists. They saw themselves as defenders of the faith and nation. Just as most of those who stormed the U.S. Capitol on January 6th of this year seemed to think that they were fighting for a righteous cause. The men who flew planes into the World Trade Center on September 11th, 2001, presumably believed that they were doing the will of Allah and were dealing a blow to the great Satan, America. Those banning books across America today think they're protecting children. Those creating bathroom bans think they're doing the right thing. Certainly those restricting women's reproductive rights think they're on the side of God's righteous cause. Much more damage has been done through good intentions than by those trying to do harm. And that's why we all need to be on guard. Not so much for what we might be tempted to do, some acts of blatant immorality or corruption. We're certainly capable of that too. But more likely, we'll be tempted by our virtue and blinded to our complicity in evil. It's been said that the devil's most successful ruse is to cloak himself in virtue. His favorite guises include patriotism, nationalism, freedom, tolerance, respectability, and piety. In fact, we are mistaken to imagine the devil as ugly, horned, and hairy because it's much more likely to appear charming, agreeable, and flattering. When someone heard that I was going to be talking about why good people do bad things, she said, "Good. I need that sermon. It seems like everything I desire is either immoral, indecent, or fattening." But the real danger is not so much about being tempted by our base desires for sex, drugs, and Ben & Jerry's ice cream. It's the temptation to do something good. The devil doesn't go to crack houses, meth labs, and brothels looking for recruits. He already has those people. He comes to churches, synagogues, mosques, and temples. These are the places and people who are most ripe for the picking because they are the most blinded by their own righteousness and susceptible to the tantalizing temptation to be good. For anyone who's visiting today, I want to make sure you know that I do not believe in a literal devil. I'm using this term as a metaphor because hold on a sec. I'm making the point that most people who do harm and create problems don't do it because they're bad people trying to do bad things. They do it because they think they're doing good. Now, what does this mean for you and me? Because, of course, we really are the good people. Right? We know. We can be certain of that. That's right. It counsels us to walk humbly and to be careful when we think that we're certain that we're right. Too much damage has been done by people who are convinced that they are right. Now, I realize that some people might find it odd that I, of all people, would counsel others to be humble with their opinions. Well, my wife is particularly finding that funny. Because I'm well known for having strong and often controversial public opinions here in Oklahoma. And I will never shy away from advocating for what I think is right. And I'm not suggesting that you do that either, but for me, it's just as important to listen to what others think. To truly listen with an open mind and an open heart, and more than anything, to make sure that we always listen, remembering their humanity. And that's why I cannot support cancel culture, and it's why I've become a huge advocate of free speech. Most important, no matter what difference of opinion that I have with someone else, I will never try to demonize or dehumanize that person. Because once we start dehumanizing people who we disagree with, there's no telling what can happen. They say that any society that burns books will eventually burn each other. And you and I, struggle against the book bans and the bathroom bills and the repression of reproductive rights, it's important that we keep our hearts and our minds open to the people who are on the other side. We cannot compromise with dehumanization, because as soon as we dehumanize others, we dehumanize ourselves. Neuroscientific research shows that when we dehumanize others, the region of our brain that is associated with disgust turns on, and the region associated with empathy turns off. And even though, today we are having this celebration of animals, it's not uncommon for people to compare members of another group to animals that they detest. Like the Nazis, in the Nazi era, there was a film, The Eternal Jew, depicting Jews as rats. And during the Rwanda genocide, Hutu officials called Tutsis cockroaches that needed to be cleared out. We also know that once people effectively dehumanize each other, the cycle of violence and hatred can go on for generations. We saw this in Northern Ireland, we see it in Israel, in former Yugoslavia, in Rwanda, and elsewhere. We don't want to see it here. According to Brian Resnick, who's an author who writes for Vox, he wrote on this subject, he said, "Experts told me that the best way to combat dehumanization is also frustratingly one of the hardest to accomplish. Simply getting to know people who are different from us." Resnick goes on, "It's hard because we have many opportunities via the news and social media to get thin slices of exposure to unfamiliar groups. And that only activates the us versus them program in our brains. And we have so few opportunities these days to do the hard work of breaking through the first impressions and getting to know the human soul inside the person who we may disagree with." According to Noor Kateli, a psychologist from Northwestern University who researches dehumanization, she writes, "Just as we have the mental capacity to dehumanize, we're equipped with the mental programs to forge trust and understanding. But it's up to us to turn them on." So, what is required of us here at All Souls in these times is courageous love. It's a love that refuses to see any person as less than us. It's a love that is willing to listen to those who we disagree with. It's a love that is not afraid of ambiguity or doubt. Most of all, it means loving ourselves, even though we too can sometimes be hostile, manipulative, and narcissistic. Now, I know what you're thinking. Marlon, who do you think we are? Saints? No, I think I've well established that that's not the case. Courageous love, however, it doesn't just appear because we say that that's what we're about. It takes effort. And the first step on the journey to courageous love is what some people call divided attention. I've been reading an author recently named Biet Simkin. You may have heard me mention her name a couple of times. And she says, we need to be observers of our thoughts and our feelings. Otherwise, we're just on autopilot. She says, we're not the voice in our head. We are the one who hears the voice in our head. We have a voice in our head that comes from our cultural conditioning, things that our parents said to us, our grandparents may have said to us, things that we've heard on TV, in the culture, on social media. There's lots of voices that come into our minds when we think about any given thing. There's lots of feelings that emerge in any given situation and triggers that may come from, have nothing to do with the situation we're in. So if we remember that the voice in our head is not our voice, we are the one listening to that voice. There's some part of us that's taking in, and if we divide our attention, can pay attention to, oh, look at this thought arising in my mind. That thought's not me. Where does that thought come from? Here's a feeling like Shannon in the story to the children this morning talked about anger. It's a natural thing. It comes up. We all deal with it. But the question is, why am I angry and what am I going to do with that anger? And people who have divided attention can say, oh, I'm angry. Look, my blood is boiling. I'm about to, smash my hand into the wall or something, or yell at somebody. And it's that, who is that that's paying attention, that can actually listen and watch and feel? That's what we need to be tuning more and more into if we're going to be able to be examples of courageous love. People who divide our attention, and we got to keep practicing that in every way. Because paying attention to what the voice is saying, because we might notice that it's actually our little dictator talking. And when that happens, we need to rebel like the people in Russia and Iran are doing right now against that dictator. Don't take orders from your shadow dictator who's in your head. Because it's always tempting to act out of self-righteousness or self-righteous anger, especially when we're certain that we're right. And it's common for people to just live on autopilot. But courageous love requires more of us. And the world needs people living with courageous love now more than ever. Meditation is a great way to cultivate divided attention. We actually have a meditation class every Wednesday night here at All Souls right now. It's free. It's at 7 o'clock. You don't have to have any experience. You can come and learn how to meditate. I highly recommend it. I don't know how I would stay sane in these times with everything that's going on if I didn't have my own spiritual practices that I do in the morning. Meditation, a little prayer, or inspiring reading, a little journaling. For me, that keeps me grounded. Now, people tell me all the time, "Man, I'm tired. I'm exhausted. I am in despair about the state of our nation or of education or any number of issues that we could be in despair about." And when I ask them, "Well, what are you doing? What's your spiritual practice? Are you doing your spiritual practice? And do you have some intentional ways and routine ways that you're feeding your soul?" They always say no. Or they like make up something real quick. You could tell, when somebody's just making something. "Well, yeah, I kind of do this thing in the morning." But you could tell that they're thinking, "No, I don't. I'm not taking care of that part of myself. I'm not nurturing that part of myself, that inner journey that we're all on, that we've been on from the beginning of our lives. That part of ourselves that thinks about what we think about, that feels about what we feel about, that thinks about what we feel about." And so if we're not taking care of ourselves, if we're not taking care of our inner life, then we are often more part of the problem than the solution. I like to talk to folks who are who think about the spiritual life. And I know that's not everybody, so you don't need to, this isn't for everybody if that's not your thing. But there's like what often is called like the vertical plane, which could be the spiritual plane or the plane of the cosmos. What I like to think about it is our interconnectedness with all things. Because if you think about it, when this all life began, there was an explosion. And all of material that exists in the world existed in that explosion, in that moment, and has been forming and reforming for all of time. And so we are part of all of that, this entire cosmos. We are truly made of star stuff, and we are interconnected with everything else that exists in the world. And so when you draw on, there's a source of energy in that interconnectedness that folks often who do spiritual practice and other things, you can draw on the energy, we say, of the vertical plane in order to bring energy to this horizontal plane that we live in. See, a lot of times we're just trying to grab energy from the horizontal plane. I want to talk to someone who makes me come alive. I want to, it's through, I'm gonna drink more coffee. I do a lot of that. I want to drink coffee because it gives me energy. And I want to, whether it's sex or drugs or this or that or gambling or whatever kind of gives us that buzz, gives us that hit, right? But we're trying to suck it from this horizontal plane, and it's limited. There's only a limited amount of that kind of energy, but there's an unlimited amount of energy in this sort of oneness, this idea that there is this cosmic oneness in all life. So I encourage you, if you don't have a spiritual practice and you're someone who's interested in what I'm talking about, to look at what you can do. It could be completely humanistic. It doesn't have Buddhism is a humanistic tradition, and I encourage you to find some way, because if you're feeling tired, if you're feeling exhausted, if you're struggling with how do I actually show up in a more loving way more of the time, learn how to divide your attention, learn how to make sure that you're nurturing and feeding your soul. I'm going to end with this quote from Solzhenitsyn, the Russian writer, who says, "If only there were evil people somewhere insidiously committing evil deeds, and if and if necessary, if it were only necessary to separate them from the rest of us and destroy them. But the line dividing good and evil cuts through the heart of every human being. And who's willing to destroy a piece of their own heart? Friends, learn to love your own divided, complicated self. Because as you learn to love yourself in all of its mess, until you learn to love yourself, your messy, mucked up self, other people, you're depriving other people of loving you. So love yourself. Love all of yourself. Know that it's all a part of who you are, but there's also this part of you that sees it all, even the mess, and knows better and knows who you really are and what you're really about in the world. So learn how to bring your divided self together by dividing your attention. And be careful who you choose as your enemies, because as they say, who you choose to be your enemies, you'll become like them. We become like the people who we focus our attention against. So remember this, life puts before you many options. Choose love. Always choose love. Thanks.
Just finding another hymn. I know that we shared with you that hymn that's about evil. This is one about love. Courageous love. Love will guide us. Peace has tried us. Hope inside us will lead the way on the road from greed to giving. Love will guide us through the hard night. And if you cannot sing like angels, if you cannot speak before thousands, you can give from deep within you. You can change the world with your courageous love.
Indeed. Yes. So one of the things you can do here is at 4 o'clock today, those who want to be welcomers, greeters, people who want to help us to greet people, Barbara and I and Randy and Corey, we're all going to be here with some others to help train people who want to do that. And we'd love to have you. We'd love to have more faces helping us to greet and usher and welcome people into All Souls on Wednesdays, on Sundays, whenever. But it's just great to have people. They've started a thing where, because some people say, well, Marlon, I'd love to help out with things like that, but I can't commit to being on some team for the whole 9 months or for a year, that kind of thing. And so they've started a thing where you can just go on to the All Souls calendar, I think it's online, and just say, oh, is there something going on tonight or something going on this week? And you could just volunteer in the kitchen or to help out with any kind of, maybe to go bring food to the homeless or to help out in the school. So you could just do like a kind of a one-time thing on your schedule that works best for you. So I hope you'll find some ways to help us continue to spread the love of this place. Next Sunday, we have a great band who's coming. They're called King Cabbage. Some people say they're the hottest band in Tulsa right now. They're a New Orleans jazz kind of, but they've got their own stuff and their own sound that they do. They're going to be playing music in both of our services. I'm trying to get them out in the parking lot before, as people are coming in, if we can, just because they're so fun. And we're just going to create just this incredible environment. I'm going to really dig down and talk about courageous love next Sunday, and I want you to be here for that. In either one of the services would be great. What else is happening? I'm trying to remember. Next Sunday too. If you're thinking about joining All Souls, we'd love to have you join. We're going to have at 11:30 and 1 o'clock. We'll have a joining class, and our offering today is going to the Oklahoma Alliance for Animals, and we are going to during the final song, they're going to show the pictures of the animals, so I hope you'll stick around and see them. But let us receive our offering. You can give online as well for those of you who are online. But it's great to see you, to be together, and to think about how we can make this world a better place.
2, 3, 4. Sorry, Gershwin, sorry. Okay.
I think Carlos Santana would be very pleased with your rendition of that song. That was great, and you'd be a little surprised he was hearing it in a church setting. But we are. This is the point, and it is great to be with you this morning and be with you every Sunday. I hope you'll come back next Sunday and be with us. Also Wednesday nights, of course, we have dinner and a small chapel service and a bunch of different classes. So check them out, and I hope to see you then. There's some refreshments and food. There's a bookstore in there. Some of the books that we talk about in our messages are in there, so you can pick up some books and just have a great week and do your part to bring courageous love to bear. Try to work on this thing I mentioned about the divided attention. And as I blow out the chalice, I'll leave us with these words. Go in peace. Have courage. Hold on to what is good and return to no person evil for evil. Strengthen the faint-hearted. Support the weak. Help the suffering. Honor all life. Until we meet again.
Good animal pet music. Cute little devils. Watches the doggy in the window. Let the dogs out. Whoa, whoa.